This is a Louie Tee Network exclusive.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome. You are in the lab room, of course. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names in the 2016 NFL Draft. We're talking wide receivers now, and this is a guy that early on in the process I was drooling over. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had to wipe my lip a little bit, clean myself up. Hey man, snap out of it. But saw him at the combine, and I was like, that wasn't all that impressive. Didn't run as fast as everybody had advertised, and so I kind of soured on him a bit, kind of pushed him back, a little bit behind some of the other guys that I was impressed with when I put on the tape that were cleaner at the combine. But look, all of that is done. We've come full circle, and now what you're looking at is a guy that is probably going to come off the board in the second round because of pure talent. He's raw, he's got a lot of growing to do with the position, but the guy is a talent, no doubt about it. I'm talking about the Ohio State University's Braxton Miller. B. Millie, as I like to call him. Let's break down B. Millie and talk about his pros, his cons, and why this guy has a chance to not only be a second round pick, but a guy that could come in and have an impact right away. 6'1", 201 pounds. So that's a pretty good size for Braxton Miller. And to be honest with you, I didn't think he was that big initially, but when you watch him, you can see he's a big boy, okay? Got some size on him, and that size makes him unique because that next pro, extremely agile. I call it the quicks. He's got a serious case of the quicks. The kind that allows you to shake a man out of his shoes without even moving. There was one play, don't ask me who they were playing, but he shakes this guy, gives him one of these little knee buckles, and the guy, what happened to my ankle? I don't know. And Braxton Miller just takes off right around him, picks up about 11 on a play where he should have got like 3 yards. Because he's that quick. He's got a case of the quicks, man. Very agile. And for his size, again, we're talking about a 6'1", 201 pound guy. Normally, this kind of agility is reserved for the 5'10 guy, the Tavon Austins of the world, those type of guys. Corey Coleman, the guy that's 5'11", 6 foot. This is a 6'1", 200 pound guy. Normally, this is reserved for that guy that's 195, 190, 185 pounds. Those type of guys. Well, he's a 6'1", 201 pound wide receiver. So to get those kind of quicks in this kind of package, very unique. So his versatility is the next pro. Something that I think is going to be attractive to some teams. You can run your gadgety plays if you're and I talked about a great fit for him would be Cincinnati to me. Because they lose Mohamed Sanu, check, 1-2, 1-2. Guess who? Mohamed Sanu. He's moved on to Atlanta. And he used to do a lot of things for them. Their gadget plays, when they wanted to do double passes and throwback passes, Mohamed Sanu was the guy for the job, ex-college quarterback. So then, Mohamed Sanu moves on. He was a solid receiver, a guy that could throw the football, and they used to run reverses and jet sweeps and things like that with him, trying to get the football in his hands because he was a unique player for them. Well, Braxton Miller, to me, provides that same thing, and he's ex-college quarterback, a hell of a college quarterback at that, two-time Big Ten Player of the Year. And so the guy can throw the football. He's a guy that you can line up in the backfield, which they did at Ohio State, put him at running back, give him a couple touches there. Jet sweeps, all of those things they used to do with Mohamed Sanu in Cincinnati, they could do with Braxton Miller. He'd be that kind of a fit for someone. So you can run it out of the backfield, you can get it to him on jet sweeps. And by the way, he's a receiver now. A guy can catch the football really well, which leads me to my next pro. Great hands. He can actually catch the football. And at the combine, I'm a little disappointed. I thought he didn't catch the football as cleanly as I would have liked him to. But guess what? You put on the tape, totally different story. The guy can catch the football. The adjustments that he had to make to some throws that were off base, tremendous. His first catch of his collegiate career as a wide receiver against Virginia Tech, first game in 2015, he has to go down and scoop one like a baseball player down by the dirt as he's kind of corralling his body and turning it and contorting it so that the ball doesn't hit the ground. It's beautiful. It's what Braxton Miller is in terms of his hands and his ability to adjust his body, which is the next pro that I have. Adjust well to the football, man. This guy makes some acrobatic catches. Part of that agility that I talked about, You see it here. I think of that Virginia Tech play that I just talked about, that I just referenced, where he goes down, scoops the football, then turns his body so that the ball didn't hit the ground. You got the Maryland catch where he's wide open. It should be a walk-in touchdown. And I talked about Cardale Jones and his inaccuracies at times. Well, this is a throw where if Cardale Jones just hits this guy in stride, he walks in for about a 45-yard touchdown. Instead, he has to dive full extension, reach for the football. Every inch of his body was extended on this play. Plucks the football out of the air on a diving stab. It's a beautiful catch. Should have been a touchdown, but it wasn't because he had to leave his feet. Had it been the NFL, it would have been a touchdown because he would have got to his feet. He was this wide open. He would have got to his feet, and he would have still walked into the end zone. But because it's college football, he was down, but it was still a hell of a catch. And that's what you get out of Braxton Miller, a guy that makes these circus catches because he has really good hands, great body control, and the ability to adjust to the football, which is rare for a guy that just came to the position. Dangerous in space, and we saw it full display, the play of the year if you ask me, in terms of a guy running with the football against Virginia Tech, first game of the season. He gets outside, and again, him in the backfield, lined up as a quarterback, running with the football. Another one of these situations where you're just trying to get the ball in a playmaker's hand. He gets to the outside with the football, and two defenders are there for Virginia Tech, and he puts the illest spin move I have ever seen in my entire life on those two defenders, leaves them in his wake, takes off for the end zone. It is the most beautiful. I went nuts at my house when I was watching that game. One of the few college football games I actually watched live on television. I went nuts in my house. I'm on social media. I'm texting people. I'm like, did you just see that play? It was insane. I could watch that play over and over and over again all day long. So he's dangerous in space. You get the football in this man's hands and you give him a little bit of daylight, you could be in some serious trouble because this guy is extremely athletic and agile, and I talked about that already, and so that's what makes him so dangerous in space. Willing blocker. He's a guy that he's not going looking for work now, okay? If the work is there in front of him, he'll take care of business. But if you ask this guy to go looking for work, he's not doing it. But that's fine. If you can get your hands on a guy, fine. And that's what he does. And the thing I love about guys like him that don't go looking for work, even though I want you looking for work, is that they're not going to do stupid stuff. They're not blocking somebody in the back. Because these guys don't go looking for work. So if the work is there, if a defender is in front of him, he will block them. Okay, you see it all the time on these wide receiver screens where he's the primary blocker. Does a hell of a job. Jalen Marshall picked up copious amounts of yards because of the blocking of Braxton Miller. So he will block, okay? But he's not looking for work, man. So I don't worry about him blocking a guy senselessly in his back because he went looking for work. So there are some pros and some cons there, but I like the fact that he's willing to get dirty and block when necessary. He's a selfless football player. And the reason why I can say this confidently is because he made the switch from all Big Ten quarterback to, just the guy on campus at Ohio State. Two-time Big Ten Player of the Year at the quarterback position. Mr. Do-It-All for that football team. He went from that to wide receiver. Most guys in that situation, they switch. They go and they leave that campus. They leave that football team and they transfer. They're going elsewhere because in their mind, I'm a bigger player than this. I'm better than this. I'm a quarterback. I'm not a wide receiver. I'm not making a switch nowhere. Matter of fact, I'm good enough to go somewhere else, transfer, and still get the job done at the quarterback position. He could have went to Florida State. They had just lost Jameis Winston. He could have transferred. Maybe he got an exception and been able to play. But instead he said, nope, I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to take my medicine. I'm going to make the switch for the good of the team. And he did that. And look at how it worked out for him. So to me, he's selfless. Because a selfish guy, he transfers. A guy that doesn't have the intestinal fortitude and the willpower to say, you know what, I'm going to make the best of the situation. They transfer. He didn't do that. So that lets me know he put the team before himself, and he's a selfless guy. Those are the kind of guys you want in your locker room. And the last pro, high ceiling. Guy just had 1 year of wide receiving experience at Ohio State this past year. So there's a lot of things he's got to work on, but because he's not a finished product yet, because this guy is so wet behind the ears at the wide receiver position, there is a lot more that he can do to get better. So the ceiling is way up there. I think a lot of people are going to fall in love with what Braxton Miller brings to the table. You go to his cons. He's raw. Route running is the biggest con that I have for him in terms of him being raw, because you see it where he's falling down, stumbling, can't really get his balance correctly on some of these routes that he's running, and doesn't get the proper depth on certain routes. Like in that Virginia Tech game, could have been a better throw by Cardale Jones, but he runs a corner route. And if he would have had the proper angle on that corner route, I think he might have run under the football that Cardale Jones throws. But because he's still transitioning and still learning at that time, he didn't run a proper route, and I think that cost him on that particular play. But at the end of the day, he will get better at running routes because he's such a good athlete. I think some team's going to take care of that for him, and he's going to be a dangerous player in the slot. Speaking of the slot, he's more of a slot receiver. That's the next con. I don't think this is a guy, even though he's 6'1", 200 pounds, which in most respects means you can play outside, I think he's more of a slot guy. I think he's someone you want to put inside as a slot receiver because of those quicks that I talked about earlier. I don't think he's necessarily a guy that you want to put outside and have him win against NFL caliber boundary corners. You put him in the slot and let him work against a slot corner, against a safety, against some linebackers, and he's going to win 9 times out of 10. So I like Braxton Miller more so in the slot, not so much as a X or a Z receiver. So it'd be interesting to see how he's used at the next level and if this guy is put in the slot or out wide. I think he's a slot receiver in my estimation. Biggest con though is he lacks top end speed. I don't think this is a big issue for a lot of other people. I'm not going to harp on it because of how quick he is, but if you're talking about it, and this is part of the reason why I don't know if he's going to be able to play outside or not, is because he doesn't have that blazing speed you're looking for. Everybody sold us on, oh, this guy's a 4.3, whatever guy. He ran a 4.5 flat, and even though he probably cleaned that up at his Ohio State pro day, I don't even know what his time was there, but when you watch him on tape, he doesn't look extremely fast. I don't see a guy that is blazing fast, running by guys and all of that stuff. So I think he's a guy that isn't huge in terms of speed, but what he lacks there, he makes more than up in a quickness and the ability to be agile. So that doesn't really worry me, especially if you put him in the slot. He's going to do more than his fair share of damage, beating defenders in that slot and winning for you and making some plays from the slot and even in the backfield in other different situations, depending on how a team decides to utilize it. So that's Braxton Miller on his Draft Prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab. We'll come back and join me. Second to the breakdown anything and everything in the National Football League. The draft is about to be upon us, man. Keep joining me as I continue to knock these prospects down next time.
There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie Tee, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In The Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In The Lab Room. That's In The Lab Room on Facebook and at In The Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.